He hadn't spoken a word in weeks. Every morning, she woke up, made breakfast, and looked at him, but he wouldn't even glance back. She was drowning in silence, wondering if this was how their marriage would end. But then, one day, she did something he never expected, something that changed everything. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Or please complete our 1,000 subscribers. It was supposed to be the perfect marriage. Emily had always dreamed of finding someone who would make her laugh, share her dreams, and build a life together. And then came Daniel. He was everything she had imagined: kind, gentle, thoughtful, and attentive. For the first few years, their relationship was the definition of bliss. They laughed together, traveled together, and faced challenges together. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. It started with small moments, silences that weren't there before, the glances that felt distant, the conversations that had become more and more scarce. At first, Emily thought it was just the stress of work, the pressures of life. But then, the silences grew longer, and the man she had married seemed to disappear behind a wall of quietness. At dinner, Daniel would stare at his plate, not once offering any commentary on the food or how his day had been. When she asked how he was feeling, he would just nod, never going beyond the one-word answer. "Good," he'd say. But Emily could see the emptiness in his eyes, the absence of the man she had once known. The silence wasn't just in their words, it was in the air between them. It was the space where love used to be, now filled with an unspoken tension neither of them seemed able to bridge. Emily, frustrated and confused, tried everything. She initiated conversations, begged him to open up, but his silence only grew stronger. He wouldn't explain what was bothering him, nor would he acknowledge the strain it was causing. Instead, he withdrew further, leaving Emily to navigate this emotional desert on her own. At first, she questioned herself. Was it something she had done? Had she changed in some way that made him retreat into himself? She even asked him directly, but all she received was a vague answer, a shrug, and a deeper silence. Emily was desperate for answers. She found herself crying at night, wondering if her marriage was ending without a single word ever being spoken to her about it. Months passed, and the gap between them grew. Emily began to resent the silence. It was as if Daniel had chosen it over her. The more he refused to speak, the more she felt abandoned and invisible. Their marriage, once full of shared dreams and laughter, felt like it was crumbling in slow motion. She no longer recognized the man she had married. And then there was one night. It was late, and Emily couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with thoughts of what had happened to their relationship. She looked over at Daniel, who was lying next to her, his back turned to her as it had been for weeks. Her heart ached as she watched him, knowing that he was just as far away as he had been for months. That night, Emily made a decision. She couldn't keep waiting for him to speak. She couldn't wait for the man she once knew to reappear. The silence had gone on long enough, and she had reached her breaking point. But instead of confronting him with anger or accusations, Emily chose to take a different approach. The next morning, she made breakfast as usual, but this time, there was something different in her demeanor. She didn't ask about his day, didn't beg him to open up. Instead, she simply sat across from him, looked into his eyes, and smiled. A smile that wasn't forced, a smile that was genuine. She took a bite of her food, savoring the taste, but still, Daniel didn't speak. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but Emily didn't break. She didn't say a word. She continued eating, continued smiling, continued living her life as though she didn't need him to speak to her to validate her existence. The longer she sat in that silence, the more Daniel seemed to notice. By midday, Daniel had finally put down his work and turned to her. "Why aren't you asking me anything?" he asked, his voice low and unsure. Emily didn't respond immediately. She took her time, looking at him, watching the man who had once been her whole world. Then softly she said, "Because I don't need you to talk to me to prove that I'm still here. I've been waiting for you to speak, but I can't keep doing that. I need you to show me you care, not with words, but with actions." The words hung in the air, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Daniel didn't retreat into his silence. He looked at her, his face filled with a mix of guilt, confusion, and realization. He had been so consumed by his own pain, his own struggles, that he hadn't noticed how much he had hurt her. In that moment, Daniel knew he needed to make a choice, either stay silent forever or find a way to bring his heart back into their marriage. Days passed, and the change was gradual but real. Daniel began to speak again. At first, it was small things, like asking about her day or commenting on the weather. But as time went on, the walls came down. He began to share his struggles, his fears, and his regrets. And in return, Emily listened. It wasn't perfect, and the silence didn't disappear overnight. But their relationship was no longer defined by it. Slowly, they began to rebuild what had been lost, one conversation at a time. If you liked this video and enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional journeys like this one. Your support means everything.